This video will talk about how to factor a difference of squares. When we talk about a difference of squares, the word difference in math, we want to think about subtraction, right? A difference in math is the answer to a subtraction question. And a square or a square number in math is a number that where its square root is a whole number. So the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2, which is a whole number. The square root of 9 is 3, which is a whole number. The square root of 16 is a whole number. Square root of 25, etc. So all of these would be considered square numbers. X squared would be another example of a square number, because if I take the square root of x squared, I can very easily say that that is x. So when we talk about a difference of squares, putting those two things together, it is a square number subtract another square number. So if we have an algebraic expression that can be written in this format, the factored form is always going to be in this format, a plus b times a minus b, whatever a and b would happen to be in this expanded form. So let's take a look at a few examples. Let's factor x squared minus 9. So x squared minus 9 can be written as x squared minus 3 squared, right? Because 3 squared is 9. And that means that this expression can be written in the form a squared minus b squared, where in this case a would be x, right? That's the first term being squared, and b would be the value 3. So if a is x and b is 3, then I can write my factored form where a is the value that goes at the beginning of each bracket, so x, and b is the value that goes at the end of each bracket, so that's a 3, and one binomial has a plus sign and the other one has a minus sign. So the factored form of this polynomial expression is x plus 3 times x minus 3. Remember that we can always check a factoring question by expanding. So if I expand this, I get x times x gives me x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. And 3 times x is a positive 3x. So the negative 3x and the positive 3x make 0x, which makes sense here because there's 0 x's, or there's no x term that shows up in this polynomial. So 0x makes sense. And then finally, 3 times negative 3 gives us that negative 9. Next one, let's factor x squared minus 49. So again, I notice that this is a difference of squares because I can write it as something squared minus something squared. In this case, x squared minus 7 squared. So here I have that a is going to be the value x and b is going to be the value 7. So the x will go at the front of each binomial and the 7 goes at the end of each binomial. And one binomial has a plus sign and one has a minus sign. It doesn't matter if the plus sign comes first or the minus sign comes first, as long as you have those two factors at the end in your factored form. The third example is to factor 25x squared minus 36. So this one might be a little bit trickier just because of that coefficient of 25 with the x squared. But what we want to be able to do is, if this is in fact a difference of squares, we need to be able to write it as something squared minus something squared. So how could we do that here? So something all squared minus something all squared. So what all squared will equal 25x squared? 5x all squared, because then the squared would apply to the 5. 5 squared is 25, and the squared would apply to the x, where we get the x squared. What squared equals 36? That's 6. So here I have a difference of squares because this is something squared minus something squared. And a in this case is 5x, and b in this case is 6. So at the beginning of each bracket is a 5x, at the end of each bracket is a 6, and one of the brackets is a plus sign, and one of the brackets is a minus sign.